Hey, what's up? So you're about to watch a video me and G. Bush recorded on Friday before the third preseason game. It was the only opening in both of our schedules where we can make it work. And I did want to make sure, given all the discourse around Shedeur Sanders, covering of Shedeur Sanders, that me and G. Bush get together before the season started and have a dialogue about it. It's not going to be combative if you're thinking about this going to be like First Take or anything like that. It ain't going to be like that. Me and G. Bush are friends at the end of the day. So, you know, it's not going to, if you're looking for like a knockdown dragon fight, I'm sorry to disappoint you. This ain't going to be that. But I did want to record a little bit before this video just to let you know that this was recorded well before that third preseason game. It was the only opening we had in our schedule, again, the Friday before the game. Obviously, I didn't anticipate that third preseason game would end up being as eventful and something that really changed the discourse around Shedeur as it has. But I think still there's a lot of conversation in here that's worth having. I am going to split this video into two parts. I do plan on releasing them the same day. So Sunday, this should be releasing. But just want to give you guys that context because I know if y'all don't, y'all going to wonder why we not talking about the bad game, why we not talking about how bad Shedeur looked, why we not talking about this, that, and the third. It's because we recorded this game before that game. Well, we recorded this video before that game happened. So without further ado, I hope you enjoy this collab me and G. Bush did. Just setting the table, setting the expectations. Hope you enjoy this conversation between me and G. Bush. I've gotten a lot of requests over the last couple of months, basically since the draft, to have this gentleman on. I haven't really talked to him in a while. I think we did talk a little bit after the draft about the Browns draft, Shedeur, all of this stuff. Let me tell you something, G. I can't talk about Shedeur without your name getting brought up, whether it be positive or negative. Every time I say something, right? It be people in my comment section, if I say something, it might be a little negative towards Shedeur. It was like, I'm going to G. Bush. I'm out of here, right? Or, you know, and some people be like, I can't, G. Bush, you got to talk to him. I was thinking you was going full Kanye over at your channel. I'm like, damn, what's going on? Did G. Bush lose it?
They said, yo, that I see it in the comment section. I be watching the videos. They say, listen, Q, G. Bush, what's gotten into G. Bush? And somebody, listen, I don't know what he's doing over there right now. I'm like, man,
is this still about football?
I tell people, here's first and foremost, I want to say this. This is crazy too. I had, they even do this with me and Earl. They'll say, Earl said something different than G. Bush said. I text everybody that I know in the game. First and foremost, you know what
I ran into Earl while I was at that training camp, actually.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I didn't know Earl was tall.
Yeah, look, Earl got a like fluctuating height disease. Earl could be anywhere from 6'2" to like 5'9". And like maybe it's just it's the locks that get me, but
Earl looks short when he sit down. That's the thing, right? Yeah. Like I look taller than I am when I sit down, but Earl looks short when he sit down. I thought Earl was like shorter than me. I'm like, no, Earl like 6'1". But
man, I tell people all the time, I listen, I told him, I said, I don't care what Quincy said about football. I cannot have no ill will towards him about nothing football related, because that is what the nature of our industry is. And I fully support independent media. I fully support independent media content. And the fact that when I came in here, I knew how it was to be the only brother, the only dude that looked like me. And I always said to myself, if I get an opportunity, I'm going to support whoever I can support and do whatever I can to support them, because now we look, you got Quincy, you got me, you got Earl, you got Tyvis, you got Emmett, you got Gerard, and now you Cam Justice.
Emmett. We gotta give him his flowers.
He was there early. I interned when he was working there.
I used to watch Emmett when I was a legitimate kid. Like I used to listen, download the podcast on. Yeah, I told him all about this. He used to talk about what's the dude he used to call a giraffe? Carlos Dansby.
Yeah.
Yeah. I talked to him about that at camp. It was just crazy. But yeah, it's a lot of like people who are Dry Cherry. You know, he's been out here for a while too. Been doing his thing. Andre Knott, somebody else. I think he was using STO back in the day.
Andre Knott on it.
Yeah.
Like I started off interning for them in 2009. Ooh. I was putting stages up for the really big show and coming to do different things and trying to run the like board and do things like on a weekend showing up to promotions. So long story short, I saw them at camp. They said, man, G Bush, man. I said, when he said, hey, I have not been called an Oreo in a long time. That's what Emmett said. Emmett said that listen, when he said it on air, I said, what? He said, yeah, man. We went up, I went to talk to him and Gerard, and we was just laughing and joking about how crazy stuff is. And he's like, man, people was like, yo, when you see G Bush, they be like, yo, I just saw G Bush yesterday. We good. Like, it's all love. So shout out to all the people out there. Football is football. Life is life. And we good in life and outside of life. So I appreciate y'all's concerns.
All right. Now all that nice stuff aside, why do you put out propaganda for Shedeur Sanders, G Bush? Answer me right now.
Hey, you got to look at it like this. If you say, G Bush, would you have taken Shedeur Sanders at number 2? I'll come across as in the Mel Kiper school of thought. Mel Kiper, he was amongst all his colleagues, and they was like, he's in the 5th round, Mel. He said, I don't care. I still got him at 2. I still like him. When you talk about quarterback evaluations, it's a preference thing. I watch battle rap, right? You know, I watch people battle. And battle rap is about preference. Do you like angles? Do you like punchlines? Do you want bars? Do you want flow, energy? So the things that we all look at for quarterbacks are, you know, they're subjective. There's a baseline of stuff we look at, like, can you throw the ball? Are you accurate? Can you move in the pocket? How well are you cerebral? Can you make big time? All that good stuff. But then there's some things that are intangibles or qualities that you may like a guy for that other people may not take it into context, right? Or value it as much as you. For me, here's the thing that I think about Shedeur Sanders. 1, I think he's accurate. 2, I think that he inspires people. I think he inspires a level of leadership, and people like him in the locker room. Now, can that just get you over to be a star quarterback? No. You have to have some other things on the field. I think that he is a person who is better in games than he is at practice. He's one of those dudes, for me, I'm not going to say it to the highest level like Joe Burrow. I think Joe Burrow is great, and Joe Burrow is not the same as Shedeur Sanders. Please don't kill me on that. But
so just to be clear here, you're not comparing Joe Burrow to as a player. You're saying like there are certain traits that you think are similar to these two, right?
Like, I think it's obvious that he has more upside than Dillon Gabriel. I didn't have a very high grade on Dillon Gabriel coming out. I'm not a big fan of Kenny Pickett.
I agree with you on the Kenny Pickett stuff. I did think you were a little bit mean to Dillon. But like I understand not believing in the upside there of Dillon Gabriel here. I do think there are two things though, right? Because I find myself, I had Shedeur late 1st round grade, right? Coming out the draft. And I wasn't particularly even high on like Cam Ward coming out. I didn't like Cam Ward either, right? So I was really happy with the Browns taking him in the 5th round. I do think there is, at some point, you do have to reckon what you believe and what you can reasonably discern that the team believes based on what they've done. That's and you got to be able to look through both of those lenses here. And I think sometimes when people get real passionate about Shedeur, it's about what they believe that he's going to be. And it's like, well, right now, he has to get out of the first box that he's in, because not enough people believe that he was the number 2 overall pick for him to go number 2, right? When we can argue a bunch of different reasons for why that happened. I think some of these reasons are compelling, some much less compelling. But there is, if we know that the NFL is shameless and the NFL teams are thirsty to get good at quarterback. We've witnessed this. The Browns literally just did this whole thing with Deshaun Watson, right? If enough teams believe Shador was a number 2 overall pick, he would have been a number 2 overall pick. And if the Browns believed that he was a number 2 overall pick, he'd at least been in the second round for him, right? So I have to look at this through like, hey, look, I like Shador as a prospect. I think you can develop him into a starter. You know, where that ceiling is with him as a starter, I think that's very debatable, but I think he can become a starter. I think the problem, the disconnect is I have to also understand that he was drafted in the 5th round. Maybe it wasn't deserved. I thought anything past day 2 was crazy for him, but still, even a day 2 pick at quarterback, there's not going to be a ton of opportunity to start, no matter what team you get drafted for. And that any opportunity to start for those guys usually happen because of, attrition throughout a season, right? Like it's usually what happens for a 5th round pick to get a start, especially in the rookie year. So I get being excited and having like that view. If you thought Shador was a number 2 overall pick, stand on it. I have no problem with that. It's also like, when we're critiquing what the Browns are doing, I do have to consider that they don't think the same thing as me, right?
You are absolutely correct in that. So you have to be clear on this point. There is a difference between what you think and where you would have him and where you have him in the pecking order and what you think his upside is.
Yeah.
And the organization, because those are 2 separate things. And so I could sit up here and jump up and down and be like, yeah, I think he should be the backup. I think he should be ahead of Dylan Gabriel. But that's not, I could do that to the cows come home. But at the end of the day, the organization is the people making the decision. And if they've drafted somebody over him, the natural progression is he's going to have to really go through some obstacles to get where he's going to go. That's completely factual.
Yeah. And I think what happens too, right, is like I get asked questions all the time where it's like, well, if the Browns believe that Dylan can only be a backup, why would they draft him in the 3rd round? The answer is they clearly believe he could be something more than a backup, right? Or at least there's a potential for there to be something more there, right? Whether we agree with it or not. And like, it's something I've learned over the years because like, you know, I could be very bullish on my own opinions at times. And it's
really?
Yeah.
You? That's like me saying I could be very emotional about my takes from time to time.
Yeah, I could be very bullish on my opinions. And it's like sometimes it's like just because I don't think the same thing as the team does not mean that the team is wrong. It just means I don't agree with what they're doing. Right. And I have to be open to being wrong there. And I think what some Browns fans have had issue with Shador coverage in general is it's a lot of this is what I think they should be doing instead of like trying to really evaluate what are the Browns doing based on what they believe and how is it within that Shador can like rise through that structure, which I think he's done a good job of just doing what he has to do right now, which is you get an opportunity, you get a task ahead of you, complete that task well, right? I don't know what's going on inside the building, right? I don't know how confident they are about a player's ability to run the whole offense. I don't know how justified that is, right? We all don't know what that is. And I'm not saying just put blind faith in the Browns organization because, like, you know, they've had their issues, their struggles. I've talked about it before. Like even Kevin, who I do think is a good coach, you got to look at him about some of these young quarterbacks he's had in there. It hasn't been great with Kevin, right? Like the guys he's been successful with have been older, veteran guys. There's a real question of if he can develop somebody. So I think there is some scrutiny that should go into that. Overall, if we look at this preseason, I'm not saying that those concerns are anywhere close to alleviated. Obviously, they won't be alleviated until I see him truly develop a young quarterback. But I do think this looks a lot better. Even like we could talk about Dylan because you weren't very happy with him last week, but I was much happier. C plus.
I went back. So I gave him a C at first, right? I went back and I said, okay, let me show you. But here's the things that I liked about Dylan Gabriel. And we talked about this on the show. I said, first of all, like when you go to practice, you look at it. If he has time to throw the football and he has a clean pocket and he has a lane, he is very accurate on when he could throw a deep end route. with the best of them. He can also throw a deep. He throws out timing perfect. You saw that to Jamari Thrash. I say on the third down conversions, I had to go back and bump him up a little bit because of what he did on third down. I thought that was impressive. And there was a play, and I think I'm trying to think who Jake Burns broke it down. And there was a read where he had to slide in the pocket, and we're running a concept where, he had multiple reads that he was looking at, and he got to his fourth read.
Yeah, the backside dig to the tight end, right?
Right. He got, and I said, okay. I had to look at that, and I'm looking at, say, all right, cool. Now, look, I even said to on UCSS, I said I had to go back and give him that because where do we want you to win? We want you to win on third down. Where do we want you to win? From the pocket, right? Now, the turnovers thing, I think people got dove into the turnovers, right? And one of the things that I know, I'll be in the room a lot. Like you could be like in college, you could be in position room and you could have a sack. You can have a sack, a strip sack or something. But if you come back the next play and have a missed assignment or a blown assignment, your grade ain't going to be good. They're going to say, listen, I know you had an explosive play, but we can't have you being in the wrong gap. We're going to have to ding you for that. So turnovers is turnovers. Am I killing him for him? No. He should have just thrown the ball away on one. And even when I was on Twitter, I said, listen, I don't know if that's the running back or when you got snaps like that, running back, I don't know if you got the reps with him. I thought he could have got the ball in his stomach. That's the quarterback's job. So I gave him credit for that one too. So he had 2 turnovers, but I went back and upgraded him to a C+. And by the way, I told Jason Lloyd while I was at practice, I said this too. I said, listen, he has a much stronger arm than I thought.
That's the one thing. I think 2 things he surprised me with in his preseason game. That I was very skeptical of. One, I noticed this at practice, right, when I was down there. That ball comes out with some giddy up, right? Like there's some zip on that ball. Now, can he push the ball downfield with a level of accuracy in a crowded pocket? We still haven't seen any of that, and I think that's a big question mark for him, right? Because we've seen how this offense can kind of turn on you as a quarterback if you can't push the ball out, if it condenses on you, right? So that can be something to look for with Dylan. And we're recording this before the 3rd preseason game, so maybe he shows this. Maybe he looks awful in that situation. We'll have more information then. But it's the arm talent I thought was a little bit more impressive. He was able to throw off awkward bases accurately with zip, which is going to be a big thing for somebody as small as him. Now, I'm not saying he's Josh Allen, right? But you know who it kind of reminded me of a little bit?
Who's that?
It was like watching like a little Baker Mayfield. So the zip is similar, and it's not Baker, because and the reason I say Baker is this. Josh Allen,
now you got to watch yourself now. You gonna stir some old coals up now, Quincy. Come on now.
Yeah, I'm trying my best. But you watch Josh Allen, he could be wrapped up, 3 defensive guys on him, toss the ball like that, get it 50 yards down the field. It pushes with giddy up down the field, and it's nice. With Dylan and like a dude like Baker, you can see that the arm strength is very good. He could throw the football far. But you also see that it is very mechanically driven, right? Yes. Like where it's like, okay,
I'm getting everything into this.
He needs to be, there's a certain level of protection he needs to make all the throws. Whereas like Josh Allen, you can have the worst offensive line in there. He's going to make all the throws. It's a lot more effortless. It is interesting to me that arm strength looked better. I thought he maneuvered the pocket a lot better. Didn't have a batted ball, I don't think, in that whole game. So we'll see if he can continue that. I do wonder if the accuracy is like, was he just hot, or is that who Dylan Gabriel is? Because like you watch some of Dylan Gabriel's games, especially at OU, and you're like, wow, this is the most accurate quarterback I've ever seen. And then like you watched him when he first that second week of camping, you're like, he's missing everything by like a wide margin. So you got to see what's up with that. Is he going to have these spurts of inaccuracy on a consistent basis, or is that who he is? And also like, hey, look. The offensive line that's going to start is much taller than the offensive line that's a backup offensive line, or like at least it appears taller. You got DeJuan Jones out there. Can you still find your lanes? And he did with DeJuan Jones out there last week. I would kind of want to see him if he's going to be out there backing up Joe Flacco this week, I throw him in one drive with that number one offensive line, or like, I just want to see him throw through those targets, because if he has to play in a game, I need to know that he's not going to be able to he's going to be able to do it without messing up. I think people are obsessed over the order in which some of these quarterbacks are going to play. Me personally, I would prefer to be the last one to play. Right?
I was just about to ask you that. Go ahead.
Yeah, I would prefer to be the last one to play. And I got flack for this from like all sorts of different camps, but it's like, if you're Shedeur, you don't want to go out there, have a bad game, and then people are like, well, now we got to see what Dylan can do.
See,
right?
I told you he wasn't no good.
Yeah, so like, because as much as there has been a lot of support around him from people who don't watch football a ton, I'm pretty sure that support, and you know how it is when people don't watch football a ton, they start just saying stuff, right? Like, and that's going to aggravate some folks that really watch it, right? Where you're talking about where he sits and how good he is. And it's like, I know he looks good. He's an NFL player, but like, it's not this, it's not that. So the backlash on him, and we saw this with Baker Mayfield, right, was the golden boy in 2020. And in 2021 came around, the same people who were praising him on ESPN were the same people who were tearing him down. And that energy will come for you just as fast as it props you up, it will tear you down.
Yes.
And what you don't want to have, and what I think the Browns ought to do, and I think what they've, in my opinion, have done a job of, is like, let's make sure that we kind of stay away from that, right? Because they could have been like, oh, we had them this high on our board. Let's put them up with the first team, first week of OTAs. That raises the expectation level. I think right now they're moving like, we're preparing him to play later in the season.
This is why, Q, that people say, look, if I'm looking for a quarterback, man, you've been looking for one forever. I'm going to do everything in my power to figure out if I got one or no. So if we in practice, this is why I was confused. If we in practice, there is no harm in letting Dylan Gabriel and Shedeur Sanders play with ones. There is no downside to it, because guess what? If you're far enough from the game, you already knew you was playing Joe Flacco. You already knew it. So you know what Joe is. So when people is up in arms like, bro, why is he, like, I went to practice and why is he over there throwing at trash cans and support guys? The evaluation is more important, and the process is more important than the slow walking. Because here's the thing. I need to know something today, because what's looming is this, and we're not naive, we're not stupid. We know what it is when it comes to the quarterback. You know what they doing next year, Q. You know it.
I got this. You're saying they're going to draft somebody right in the first round next year. Okay, so I got two critiques of that. One, I think it's different when Dylan is possibly one player away from having to play and getting him time with the ones, versus like at camp early on. The idea was like you were supposed to see what Kenny Pickett got, right? So that was like the main thing you were trying to see with the ones, because you knew what Joe Flacco had. Now we can argue, after Kenny Pickett went out with a hamstring, I do think it wouldn't have hurt nobody to give Shedeur some reps with the ones, but maybe that's them wanting to be careful, because I don't know how prepared they feel like Shedeur is for that, right? Because what could also happen is they put him in with the ones, and like, he throws like an interception or two, and then the internet gets a hold of it, and now you're fighting off that whole media storm. I don't know. I don't know what
I think he's built for it. If there's anything, I think confidence is never going to be a Shedeur thing. I think he'll be fine. For me, I want fire. I want competition. I want to see you. I don't want to I want to see you have to do it on the run, on the fly. You might not be the most comfortable in the world. You may not have all things, but I want to see you sink or swim, right? And I think there's some value to that when it comes to quarterbacks, especially young quarterbacks, right? You don't got to do a regular season, but I do want to see what your mettle is about when I can control the environment, so to speak.
I get that. It's just like, I think they're fresh off DTR, and DTR wasn't built for that. And maybe that's something they're sensitive about when it comes to like these develop. I can see it being like, man, like we don't really know dude yet. So until we know, like we can't just put him in this spot where there's more scrutiny. Yeah, where it's like more scrutiny than ever. Like,
you know why? They came off, think about this. You are correct. Add on top of this, they came off Baker, they came off Deshaun Watson, they came off DTR.
There's something run of dudes just losing their confidence. Like,
like I could see where you gun shy a little bit. Like the Deshaun Watson stuff, it shook a lot of stuff that they was doing. It shook the core and the foundation. It made them think, dang, can I really coach? Like, I think they are a little gun shy. And then, by the way, Baker playing well right now. I know it's been a couple years removed, but as well as he's playing right now, you can't think. It's like your
they're not thinking about that, right? Like, especially when they don't have a quarterback.
Right.
Like,
it's there.
It's a thing. It's a thing for them, right? Like, that's something that they have to reckon with. And again, like, I think you can, if you're them, you can think to yourself, like, yeah, dude, like 2 years to bounce back. Like, people are acting like he just got traded to Tampa Bay and was good.
No,
yeah. But yeah, there was some humbling that needed to happen there with Baker Mayfield that they were well aware of in the building, right? That needed to happen, and then it finally happened for him. But I can understand, like, after doing that, you want to be more cautious with somebody you view as you're developing, right? Mm-hmm. Whereas, like with Dylan, you're not operating that way with him, where you view him as developing. So I understand from that aspect why they might have been shy for it. If it were me, and this is again where I got to separate me from them, right? Like if it were me,
this is a great conversation.
Yeah,
if like it were me, separating us from what they doing.
If it were me, sure, but I can't sit here and look at it and be like, I can't see why they would be like, oh, nah, we're not going to put him in against Miles and all of them. Like right now, we're going to let him continue to build confidence, ball out versus whoever's he's up there against, maybe ink up the challenge a little bit here or there, because ultimately he's not in the mix to play week 1, or really he's not going, unless he does something spectacular during the preseason that we have never seen before. We're probably talking about him playing later, so we could put that pot on the back burner for a little bit and then still cook. Now, what was the second thing you got into? Oh, the quarterback in 2026. Here's my thing about that. I do believe that we are overestimating how much the performance of this quarterback room will impact what the Browns do in the draft next year. And the reason I say that is there is no way in the world. Who's your favorite quarterback coming out in 2026? We'll just roll with him.
Let me go with I like Sellers. I like him.
All right, Lenore Sellers.
Yeah, I like him.
Let's say Andrew Berry, Kevin Stefanski, the whole building agrees with you. They think Lenore Sellers has the potential to be Lamar Jackson and Jalen Hurts combined, that he's going to be an elite quarterback in this league if we just develop him correctly, right?
Jalen Jackson is elite.
Yeah, Jalen Jackson.
Jaden
Jackson, right there. Jaden Daniels or Lamar Daniels. Yeah, yeah. So let's say that's what they believe, right? Oh, this guy, he's special. And let's say they got the third pick because Jacksonville, let's say they had the third pick because they're on record. You can even say that they have the access to get the third pick because they have the extra first round pick. Is there anything in the world that's going to stop the Browns from taking that dude if they have the opportunity to take that guy?
Oh, no, if they feel like, oh, this guy is generational, whatever the case may be, no.
Mm-hmm.
So now, we know that.
Yeah, so if they're, I don't think seeing Dylan going to change that, seeing Shador. Now, what they could do to stop that from happening is like, hey, you could potentially play the Browns out of a certain draft position, right? Because I don't think the Browns are going to reach for quarterback. We had this argument all draft, right? But I don't think the Browns are going to reach for quarterback for a number of reasons. And I think that's, in my opinion, the right thing to do, because reaching for quarterback has had a long history of just simply not working. And I don't think they're going to reach for quarterback. I think the best place for this team to be at the end of the season is that you feel good enough about one of these two that you can say to yourself reasonably, you know, if we get the opportunity to see these guys for a full season, I'm not going to be mad at it. You know, if you feel that way about, like, if Shedeur plays well the last 5-6 games of the season and you're thinking to yourself, I think I'm excited about seeing Shedeur for next season. I think that puts you in a good position because you're not going to reach for a quarterback if you're outside the top 10, right?
Or you don't have the ammunition. By the way,
or if you don't,
if Lenore Sellers is generational at 1 or 2, you're not gonna get him anyway because they're not gonna trade it. Whoever's there,
unless
not trading that.
It's a team like Jacksonville who we have their pick, or it's like a team that has a quarterback that has that pick, right? So, you know, the odds aren't high, right? If it's 1 or 2, but yeah, if you're in that position, right? If you're the Browns, where you don't feel the need to reach for somebody unless he's the guy in that draft that you love, that you're willing, because I don't want to be in a situation like Indy is right now, where you draft a project and don't commit to him at all. Like, I want the Browns to draft somebody and say to themselves, we're going to spend the next 4 or 5 years of our lives making sure this guy becomes an all-pro, you know, becomes a Pro Bowler, becomes a franchise quarterback. Yeah, it might not take 4 or 5 years, hopefully, but we're going to commit for these next 4 years on this guy. We're going to get this guy to a second contract, has to be the hope. And we're not going to be wavered off of that because Gardner Minshew's playing for the team or Daniel Jones, right? We're going to stick with this. So unless there's that level of guy there that they're willing to commit to, that they can get, I want them to avoid drafting a quarterback. If it's like, well, you know, I kind of like Drew Aller, right? Let's kind of. I don't want them to do that. I don't want them to make a decision at quarterback because they have to. I want them to make a decision at quarterback because they want to. And if Shedeur or Dillon gets to a point to where you can reasonably say, we can start them next year, and I don't think it's going to be a disaster, right? It doesn't have to be you think that they're going to be the next great thing, but, you know, at the very least, you feel like you can start the guy and it won't be a disaster. I think that puts you in a great spot because even if you do draft the Lenore Sellers, right, you get that guy in the top 3. Well, Shedeur can play while that guy sits on the bench for the most of his rookie year, similar to what they did with Pat Mahomes in Kansas City. And then best case scenario, you know, you feel great about Lenore's in year 2. You're ready to go on the Lenore's train and start him. And somebody's willing to give you a bunch of assets that you can use to build around that guy for whichever quarterback that you had hold it down for the year. That's the best spot that you could be at.
I like your rationale. My rationale is, I guess when you get a little older, you start to not have the same level of patience level because you start to extrapolate this thing over, like, all right, we know, let's be clear. We know that Andrew Berry is having conversations about quarterbacks right now. He's probably at scouts and evaluating, which he should be doing, as he should. Now watch this. Now Kevin Stefanski need to figure something out here. The Cleveland Browns have an opportunity. See, franchise flip on these little things, right? If you pick and you hit, like I'm not saying that Brock Purdy is the end all be all, but here's what I'll give Kyle Shanahan. He knew early on Trey Lance wasn't it, and he was hurt. They spent almost as much draft capital to get Trey Lance that the Browns did to get Deshaun Watson. Yeah. He said, he went to the owner and said, hey, well, how Trey Lance looking? He said, well, no, I'm going to tell you what, the best quarterback we got is that kid, Brock Purdy, and he from in the 7th round. And I give them credit for not only identifying that, but acting. They acted on it. And it paid dividends because it got you out of the Trey Lance situation. It got you out of the situation. Like, you weren't left with this deceiving gap in your roster because you were able to identify somebody that nobody else did, and they got to play. Now, granted, is that the end all be all? Can you just do that? No.
Let me ask you this question, though. Do you think that they had the belief you need to have behind somebody to make that kind of move on Trey Lance before they made that move. Because I would argue that the quickness that they got off of him indicates that they were just taking a shot, right? They weren't making a move where they're like, no, I have absolute confidence. Well, not absolute. You're never going to have absolute. But I don't think they made that move with the amount of, what would we call it? The amount of agreeance in that building that they needed.
There was definitely factions, and some people like, I'm against this. Because now, mind you, Jimmy G had just taken him.
When he gets injured, that screams a bunch of people in the building going like, see, right? So, if I will never criticize a team, even like when it's a player I don't like, because Cam Ward, I'm not a big fan, but it seems like everybody in that building was like, we want this guy. We're going to commit to this guy. Okay, if you feel that way about a quarterback, draft him. Right? If that's truly what's going on, draft him. Even if the world's telling you not to. Sean Payton felt the same way about Bo Nix. I thought Bo Nix was a terrible prospect. But hey, again, you had the vision. So you roll out with it, right? If it's that, I ain't got a problem with it, right? Where I do have a problem is when you're making those swings because you feel like you got to do something at quarterback.
I mean, Quincy, we got Jimmy Haslam. We ain't never gonna have no consensus. Listen, between D. Podesta, Jimmy Haslam, Andrew Berry,
really
and Kevin Stefanski,
need Jimmy to have the consensus. Like, I know people are gonna be like, Jimmy's gonna pay the money out there, but look, I think throughout this organization, you can have a negative opinion about Kevin and Andrew, but Jimmy's been willing to do, for the most part, what they've been willing to do.
Yes. What I'm saying is the consensus, though.
So the consensus needs to be between Kevin and Andrew. And the quarterback coach and the offensive coordinator and all those.